welcome everyone and happy International Women's Day. My name is Terry Paddock. I am very pleased to have been asked by Webmart to chair this discussion today. And we've got a great panel to tackle the topic, which, just to remind everyone, in honor of International Women's Day, what we're doing here is discussing it's a discussion around women currently working in or thinking of joining a profession which is still dominated by men within senior management. And I think there are a few of those professions. So we are aiming to have an honest, in-depth look at how these various industries have changed and how far we still have to go. I am going to introduce you briefly to my panelists and then come back to each of them in turn to give us more of a view from their perspective in their sectors. I also just wanted to note, I don't know how much you know about the history of International Women's Day. I was writing about this for another project I'm working on. And International Women's Day, we actually have Russia to thank for the modern International Women's Day. It came out of when women's suffrage was gained in Russia in 1917. And in many countries around the world, not this one, but in many countries, it's actually an official public holiday. And one of those countries is Ukraine, and where it's an official public holiday. I imagine they're not thinking too much about that today, but I was really struck when I was writing this for another project that in Ukraine, women are a really key part of the armed forces there and actually comprise about 16% of the fighting forces on the ground in Ukraine. So thinking of them today. But more importantly, let's think now in this webinar about the people I've got joining me to tackle the topic. So I've got 4 women from industries that, as we have noted, are male dominated: print, technology, engineering, and haulage. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more about each of those. So in brief, let me introduce you to, if you can each give a wave as I introduce your name, Kelly O'Sullivan, who is the procurement director from Webmart, our host. And Webmart is based out of Oxfordshire. I've also got Natalie Mills, who is general manager at Atlas LGV Training, which is based in Yorkshire. Hello, Natalie. And Nalomi Das, who is a tech consultant who's worked with a huge number of big names in the tech industry. And just your CV, like Nalomi, when I look at things like about artificial intelligence, I get a little bit freaked out. So I'm impressed just by that. And Nalomi is based in Leeds. And finally, we've got Penny Galler, who is Director and Head of Sustainability at the Elliott Wood Partnership, an engineering partnership. And she, like myself, is based in London. Just a little bit about myself. I have a background in the theatre industry and media. So again, lots of efforts there to improve the gender balance. But now let me go back to each of my panelists to give us a little bit more of a view from their industry. So Kelly, if I can start with you, tell us a little bit about the print industry, how you got into it. Let me also preface this by saying, I want to bring us up to basically when we got to the pandemic, because lots of things obviously has changed in terms of working practices over the past 2 years. So I hope some of that is encouraging, and I think we can come back to that and discuss that in full together. But let's set some context first. So Kelly, tell us about the print industry, what got you into it, and challenges you face as a woman in this male field.
Oh, God, that's lots of questions, Terry, all at once.
Sorry. Tackle that however you want. What drew you to it in the first place? What drew you to print?
So I've been in the industry for 25 years. I kind of fell into it by accident, as I think most people I've ever met in the print industry have also said the same thing. I did a mechanical engineering degree. When I graduated, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I saw an advert for a role for Webmart, actually, and it sounded interesting, and I thought I'll just go and have an interview and see what happens. But actually, once I was in the print industry, I have absolutely loved it. I think it's an ever-changing industry, you can get involved in so many different things. It's very creative, but it's also uses a lot of technology, and it's all around us. And I think it's one of those things that you maybe don't consciously think of joining because you don't necessarily notice it. But actually, when you think about print, it's everywhere. At school, in shops, often through your letterbox. When you drive around, you'll probably see advertising, as you're on a bus or on the roads. So I love it. I've been in it a long time. I started off at Webmart. I've worked for Sainsbury's and Argos in between times, buying their print, and I'm now back at Webmart again, working with our clients and our suppliers.
Yes, I was very impressed. You mentioned Sainsbury's and Argos. You've also worked at Home Retail Group, so a huge amount of experience providing print in the retail sector in particular. And I also noticed on your LinkedIn page, you say that one of the things you pride yourself in is being a well-being and gender balance champion. And I thought that was interesting to put those two in the same description, well-being and gender balance. Do you think that gender balance contributes to well-being? Are they inextricably linked?
I think they are, yes. So I actually set up the Victoria Print Network 3 years ago, and it's a network all about supporting women within the UK print industry, by encouraging us all to support each other, highlighting different role models to help inspire people. And before the pandemic hit, we were doing things like roundtables, getting women from all different businesses across the UK and all different levels to just support each other, share experiences. And I think if you don't feel alone, it's a lot easier to overcome any challenges you might have. And I think, sometimes in an industry, particularly one that's as male dominated as mine and all of the other guests today, you do find that if it's really challenging, that affects your well-being. If you're not being heard when you're sitting in a meeting, that affects how you feel. So I do think that the two things work together.
Wonderful. And can you give us an idea, what is the size of the print industry? You say it's all around us, and now I'm going to notice it a lot more as I walk out on my plant today. But how many people are employed in print?
I don't know, actually. That's a really good question. No. That's one for Google, I think.
But you did give me great statistics, which is that in this industry, as of 2019, it was 31% female. So again,
so that came
lots of inbounds there.
Yeah, that came from the BPIF, which is an industry body for print. And in 2019, they did a survey of all of the people across the industry. And it came out as 31% women, and 25% women in the manufacturing sector.
Right. So. And have you ever felt daunted by senior male management?
When I first started in the industry, yes. I was 21, and all of a sudden working in an industry where everyone I dealt with was a male. So that was quite scary. And I definitely had instances where, particularly in the early years of my career, where I'd be in a meeting, I'd have a meeting, say, with a sales contact, and if there was another person from my company there, they would talk to them rather than talk to me, and I'd get ignored. It was quite difficult to start with, and I think now it's very different. I've been in the industry a very long time, and I know a lot of people, and I think that makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, great. Thank you for kicking us off very much, Kelly. So let me now turn to Natalie. Natalie, as I said, you're general manager at Atlas LGV Training. You've been there 5 years. It's a family business, which is fantastic. But before that, you founded your own company in the creative fields, right? So this definitely is an industry I associate with men.
Yeah.
HGV
You can't
drivers,
get much
absolutely.
more male orientated than a lorry. No, I would say I've been with Atlas about 5 years, but it's been a very strange road to get there. In all honesty, I've grown up around vehicles. My dad owns a couple of haulage companies, and my granddad set this up 40 years ago as a driving school. So when I say I grew up with HGVs, I really did grow up around lorries. My princess palaces, when you used to make little pens when you were younger, were in sleeper cabs of haulage. So it was I very much was around that. My dad raced as well, so I spent a lot of my younger years on motocross tracks, stock cars, rally cars, all sorts. So a bit of a diesel head, but it's definitely an industry. I mean, I went to university, studied graphic design. That's something that's always come naturally to me, and I always wanted to do it, and eventually found myself creating my own small graphic design agency. Worked a lot with print. I'm a little bit of a paper fiend. I like a good old sniff of a paper, and so that's a field that I love. And I actually found myself coming back to Rotherham. I moved away as well, and told my dad that how dare he have a website that was so shocking when his daughter designed them. So I designed the website. I then found myself picking up the phone when our transport manager was off, and it just developed from there. We found that sales picked up, and I started to do a bit more of the graphic design, and it literally, like Kelly, I just fell into it. And then it got to a point where we kind of just went from there, and now I've kind of been officially handed the reins. So I own it with my husband.
And if you've grown up in that environment, do you find it at all unsettling, often being the sole female or one of few? No.
In fact, that's from a very large company. A guy just giving me a call now. I don't find it unsettling. I actually love it. And being in, I find design quite a feminine industry. I was brand director for a hospitality company, so I did design in hospitality, which is quite feminine, I would probably say. No, I miss the dirt and the smell of diesel, and I like the shock on, I do get a shock if I'm speaking, I do online training as well, and I'll be sat in front of 40 blokes teaching them, doing a CPC course. And I quite like the shock on the face when a woman comes on, because unfortunately it is still quite sexist in this industry, because you've got an older generation of men, not just men, an older generation. So no, I quite enjoy it.
Wonderful. Also, I like it. I like
truck with heels on is fantastic. You get a right reaction.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, Nalomi, let me turn to you. Nalomi Das, who's a tech consultant with a huge amount of experience in the tech industry. What's the view from technology? How is it for women in technology?
Okay, so just to start with some statistics in the UK, so in my field, in STEM or STEAM, as you can call it, it's 19% which is women who are there. And just to take a few steps back from my origin story, I come from India. So when I was doing my engineering, there were only, if I give you a ratio, less than 1% of girls were in computer science engineering. And then when I did my MBA, and I took a major of marketing, I was the only girl in the class, because all the women moved to HR. And long story short, when I was doing my campusing, I was even asked, why are you not taking HR? And that's the background I come from. And in the room, I was the only female. Every time I walked in, I was the only female. Obviously, it's changed. Then within a year or so, I came to UK. I still was the only female. So I come in the part of the consulting domain of Europe from my company. And we work with pretty much all the global MNC in terms of telecommunications and that side of it in the technology side. And there were like around 1,000 consultants, only 2 were women, and I was the second one who came across, and the youngest one. And everyone around me was like 10 to 15 years older than me. So that was the statistics I had. So I have been shushed when I was trying to introduce myself. I have not been taken into account. So when I was like just entered it, I used to get very mad at that internally. And what was so heartbreaking at that point, I remember the first time it happened, it was first week in my work life I entered. And I was talking to some of the girls and they were like, don't feel bad about it. It happens. And I was like, no, it doesn't happen like that. So I have a very simple rule in life. Either you leave a situation, you change a situation, or accept a situation. But it doesn't happen overnight. I know there are a lot of talks about like breaking the glass ceiling. I believe in making a glass door or a sliding door behind me. Don't break anything. Create that. What happens? Whoever comes after you, it becomes easier for them. And it's a conversation. So I have went into a room with an average age of 50 years old, who is not asking me any question or even not accounting me in. But then I do my due diligence, I do my work and start asking the conversation. And I have seen a lot of people who get changed in the process. So some of my mentors and champions have been men who have been the biggest supporters because their perspectives change. So yes, it will not happen one night. You probably have to work 3 times hard as anyone else to make sure that, yes, you are doing the work as far as any male calling. Is it fair? No. But what do you do about it? Cry about it or just change it? So I think the change had been great. And the supporters or the cheerleaders I have got, I will say, I have a lot of male cheerleaders as well who had mentored me, taught me. And that's how you change a conversation. And now when I see it's an amazing set of network, you get more people who empower you and try to ignore the people who are not setting or helping your narrative. So that's how it works. And also it's also a responsibility in terms of keep updating yourself in terms of technology. And I think it's a common suggestion which should go for anyone, woman or man or anyone, which should be there, especially in a field I am. It's moved so fast with AI technology and blockchain and data and cloud, which is coming across. So you need to keep yourself up to date and try to have a voice, learn, practice. Because I was the most introverted person you can ever think of. I used to have social anxiety. I will never speak if there are more than 2 people in room when I was 16 or 17. From that, you create your own muscles and strength, and also the technological skill and anything which comes between that. And the story continues. And I have chosen a profession where I literally earn my living about consulting. So my profession is talking about technology to people and solve their problems. Sometimes it's kind of a babysitting very, very senior people. So,
Yeah.
And I think women are perfect for them. We are patient and we can okay, darling, calm down. Let's talk about the problem. So it's fun, actually. I love it. And as Natalie was saying, I sometimes love the shock because everyone is like, they think I am like a management trainee or graduate taking notes. So I sometimes do like 10 minutes, I don't speak, I just listen. And then I come in and the shock in their face that they're supposed to report to me or answering me is marvelous. So many things get done so easily once they're registered. The shock comes in and like, okay, yes, I will do it for you. It's just fun. You need to have fun while doing this.
I really love that. Yeah, like subverting expectations and using that as part of your kind of toolkits for advancement and dealing with these difficult situations. So sorry, I'm so engrossed with hearing all of your stories. I know we need to move along. So Penny, but let me come to you finally. Tell us a little bit, just a little bit about engineering and the gender balance in engineering.
Yep. Hi, everyone. So I'm a structural engineer. So essentially my job is to make buildings stand up. That's probably the easiest way to explain it. And I entered the industry back in 2006. Prior to that, I'd worked for 3 years in financial services straight from uni. But then since 2006, I've been a practicing structural engineer. I think in terms of gender balance, I think it's, as the industry as a whole, I did look up a few stats. I think there's something like 20% of women work in the engineering sector, but actually of that, when you look at how many are engineers in the UK, something like 12% of all engineers are women across the UK. That's just a Google stat, so don't quote me on it. So it's quite low, generally speaking. At my company in particular, Elliott Woods, I've got a real stat, which is 29% of the team is female as I sit here currently. So say 30% of our team is female, which is good. And I think that's one of the main points that I want to make really is, I think when I started my career, I would quite often go to meetings and I'd be the only female at the table. Particularly when you go to construction sites and you're overseeing the work on site, I used to be, quite often the only female, and obviously quite young at the time in my early 20s. So I think, as some of the others have already alluded to, it was quite important to read the room and understand who your kind of champions are going to be and who the ones are going to be, putting little digs in or saying things that were out of order in some cases, and building the right relationships. And I think I managed to do that reasonably well. I used to work out who I could get on with well and sort of prove myself. And I think a lot of what I've done through my career is trying to prove myself. And sometimes that has meant going above and beyond perhaps what male colleagues maybe perceive to need to do. But equally, as part of my makeup as well, it's about doing a good job and doing things as well as I possibly can. And then I think the big point I really want to make is it's so important to find the right company, I think, in our profession. There's a big difference between some of the more traditional engineers where, it's middle-aged men in suited and booted versus some of the practices in say London, and I can only really speak about London because that's where I work, but there's some really young, really kind of dynamic companies that you can work within. And in those companies like my company, the percentage of women is much higher, and therefore it's not such a big issue. I mean, it's not something that we necessarily spend too much time thinking about or having to worry about. And I would say, having that employer backing you up is really, really important. There have been instances where female colleagues of mine have gone to site and the contractors not listened to them, or some of them have been sort of verbally abused by contractors. And our company, back them up straight away. They're writing letters of formal complaint against these contractors. Certain projects we've potentially threatened to pull out of because of the way that perhaps some people might have been treated in those situations. So whilst it doesn't happen that often anymore and things have changed, I think it's just really important that you've got the backup from your employer and the support to navigate your career in whatever direction you want to go in.
That's really interesting. So I'm hearing from you, Kelly, and also Nalormi, it's kind of finding allies, male allies, finding the right companies and environments, particularly maybe as you're starting out, that can get you the experience and the confidence to go further. How would you do your due diligence? How would you advise people to, make sure when they're looking at the sector, how can they find those companies and those allies? Any ideas on that?
I mean, I think in terms of, if you're looking for, say, a graduate role or an entry-level role, I think it's really important to, have a good look at their website and see what their policies are. If they've got, some of it is maybe perceived to be sort of legal statements about equal opportunities, etc. But you can quite quickly start to form a view of a company by, their Instagram posts, their LinkedIn posts, see what they're actually doing. They're promoting women, whether they're promoting women, whether they're promoting diversity generally, because obviously diversity goes a lot further than just gender equality. And just speaking to people at the companies, I would definitely say there's no kind of substitute for actually speaking to the people who are working for those companies and getting their true opinion of what's going on there.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts on that? Finding allies or the right companies to start
I always feel a little bit like I agree to on the ally front, but I don't know. I've always been very much kind of a little bit the opposite, maybe. I've always sort of not really found that man to champion. I've almost gone against it, you know, and kind of. I think you have to use it, don't you, to your advantage. You have to use the fact that you are a woman, and well, every now and again, I'd like to think I don't have to do everything, because let's face it, it's hard blooming work. You know, house, children, and then you've got to somehow pull it out the bag at work. But I don't know. I've always quite enjoyed that sort of challenging aspect. You know, and I suppose it's the type of person you are, and you know, it doesn't matter. It's whatever works. I've always kind of found strength in going against rather than finding allies.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just different people, and I've kind of gone, yeah, mate, but no.
I think it changed. I'd agree with that, Natalie, and certainly as my career has progressed. I think in the early days you kind of finding your feet, and maybe you do need those allies. But I think certainly as my career has progressed, you know, me calling things out that I don't believe in or that I don't think are right has opened up opportunities for me, for sure. And the fact that I'm a woman has opened up a lot of opportunities and stood out.
Yeah.
Because
and
as you grow, as you grow, you get like more understanding of how the industry also works. Because when you are starting out, couple of years, you are learning. And I can only give example from my industry. For example, I will not take the name of the company from my MBA time when I was doing campusing. These are international companies, very well known. Everyone have eaten their chocolates if someone loves chocolates. So these are like big companies. And it's not that in their policies also, Penny, as you were saying about research, in the policy it's equal for all. It's just that when I was reaching out to my alumni network, you can see they don't hire any female in the marketing or the finance part of it. They don't. Historically, there is literally none. So when I was just talking to people, you get the you know, scenario how it's going inside the company. So you need to do the research around it. So I ended up taking like starting the job where the salary was a bit low, but during the interview, I actually put across terms and conditions of the roles I want to have. So I had the power to negotiate. So for me, it was like, I can compromise on money. I want someone who culturally will accept me. I have negotiations of power. And it's about learning. So it's all about those. What is your priority at the end of the day? Is it the money or the brand or validation from what's coming in? Or you want to go into a right place where the people you can work with, at least at that scenario, make best out of it. And until you grow to a situation where now we are in a stage where we can call out, we can make the rules fair for all and have a more opinion as you grow as the voice. So, yep.
I have to say, when I shared on my LinkedIn that I was hosting this chat, and the headline, you know, as you know, is "Female Leaders in a Male World," and I had someone in my industry, a man, say, why aren't they just leaders? Why are you drawing distinctions that they're female or that it's a male world? They're just leaders. And I think he was coming from a place of, you know, he doesn't want to see distinctions, but at the same time, there are distinctions and there are inequities. So unless we recognize it, how do you change it?
It's all about diversity as well, though, isn't it? And, you know, I think it was Penny that mentioned earlier that it's not just diversity of gender. Diversity is much wider than that. But actually, any business should try to aim to be as diverse as possible, because it's of benefit to the business as well as the individuals in it.
Yeah. And so I just wonder if you don't mind, ladies, how many of you have families? How many of you are mothers? Yeah. Okay. And let's talk about that. Has that affected your careers? Let's start with what's that?
Yeah, it stopped it for a bit.
It stopped the career for a bit. Kelly, can I start with you on that one? How did having a family change things for you, and how supportive was your employer?
So I'd say it probably slowed my career down a little bit. I think, when I first had my children, they're 13 and 16 now. But when I first had them, being very little, I wanted to focus on being with them more rather than perhaps focusing on my career. But I did go back to work for Argos in between having both my children. And they were fantastic. They were incredibly supportive. I went back to the role that I left, which I know there's, sometimes that is difficult to happen as well. One of the key things that I found that really helped me to be able to go back was the open-mindedness to offer flexibility of working. And I know that's something that's not enjoyed by everybody, but I have to say that Sainsbury's and Argos, and actually Webmart, where I am now, are really good at being able to be flexible, and I think that just helps women to be able to have that balance between having their children and being able to work. And flexibility means different things to different people, doesn't it? So for me, I work 4 days a week rather than 5, but that means that I had a Friday where I could then spend that little bit of extra time with my children, and now they're at school, I get all of the jobs done and stuff so that I can still spend some time with them in the evenings and weekends rather than trying to do everything all of the time. So I think that for me, that's something where employers can make a big difference, is to be able to just be a little bit more open-minded about, whether it's flexibility of hours or part-time working, and just understanding that, it's difficult when you're looking after children, and let's face it, women tend to be the ones that do the majority of the looking after. Trying to balance that with a career is very challenging.
Okay, so just logistically, and what about, again, coming back to the theme of working in a male-dominated industry, Natalie, Penny, do you find that your male colleagues have treated you any differently or misunderstood or anything? Natalie.
Oh,
or
sorry.
So, no, go, you go, Penny. Penny.
Just in terms of how I've been treated, I don't think I've been treated negatively at all in my company. I've worked various different flexible working regimes since I returned. I had my daughter in 2014 and returned to work after a year's maternity, and was unexpectedly pregnant again by the time I went back. So I was obviously really nervous about that, about telling them. So I then just worked for 6 months and then went off for another year and had my son. And that was all fully supported. There was no issues there. I think it was just a case, my company's attitude was very much sort of, life events, if we want to keep you for the long term, then you're going to have these life events. And that's not just restricted to me, that's for everyone, male or female, and regardless of what that life event is. So I felt very well supported there. Actually, when I told them I was pregnant, I said I only wanted to work 3 days a week when I came back. And so I then worked 3 days a week for 4 or 5 years in total, I think. I lose track. And I found that really challenging, to be honest. Working 3 days a week was really, really difficult. And I suppose one thing I would say was I was supported to be working flexibly, but in reality, day to day, it wasn't always that easy. There was not necessarily the support put in place to make that actually work. And then in September last year, I upped my working days to 4 days a week. And I've actually found that a lot easier, just having the 1 day. It means, I think, with 3 days a week, I was trying to basically still do a full-time job in 3 days a week, whereas now 4 days a week, it makes it a lot easier. But yeah, I think in terms of support, it's been generally very good at work. They've been very accommodating for whatever I need to do. On a day-to-day basis, it is still challenging if you have to leave or your child's ill or something. It is a really, really hard, and many weeks, I think, am I crazy trying to do the juggle? But I've made the decision that I want to do that. And I think it's a very personal thing, and I don't think anyone can really tell what anybody else should do. You kind of have to feel your way through it.
And Natalie, how's it been for you?
I think I'm in quite a different situation to a lot of people, so I can kind of give it from a different angle, if you like. I mean, obviously, this is a very male orientated industry. 3% actually. There's only 3%, and that's only just gone up from 1.5% of women actually drive lorries. And when you think about it, there's 500,000 HGVs on the road in the UK. So that just puts it into perspective. And there's 1.6% of transport managers are women. So that's how bad, you know, it is bad. It's getting better, but it's not there yet. I think people still think when you drive a lorry, it's, you know, there's no, it's all automatic. You don't do the loading anymore. It's a completely different environment to what it was. I think when I say I come at it from a different angle, because technically I am the employer, so there's no one above me, but it does pose its own challenges. I think people automatically think, oh well, you know, you can just do what you want. It actually ends up being worse in a way, not completely, but my husband also runs the company with me. We've got 2 different divisions now going off, so we do online training as well, and I've got a 4-year-old and a 5-month-old, and when I say I've never had maternity leave, I really mean it. Everybody joked and said I would be sending emails while I was in labour, and it actually happened. And then I was back the day after, because as far as it goes, if I'm not in this office, this company doesn't run. So that's the pressure that I'm kind of under. And I think guilt plays a lot into it. And I think a lot of women will relate to this, that guilt, because, you know, I have a fantastic network. I live next door to my parents, my grandparents. It's a family business. So we all work together. They say, what is it, a village to raise a child, that type of thing. It really is in this case. And it's the only way that I've managed to do it. But I think guilt plays massive into it. I'm sat in our office that's across the road from our house, and I have a massive play area, you know, so our kids come over and they're part of the business, just so that, you know, I'm kind of not sat there feeling guilty all the time because they're off here, there and everywhere. But I don't think men, and I'm not attacking them, all my instructors are male. There's my husband, my dad, my granddad, everyone's male. And I don't think it's quite understood, and that's not their fault. I'm not kind of dividing us, but we are the women, and it's not just about taking care of children. It's about what's in your mind. It's about knowing, right, okay, so Georgia, my daughter's going to school. I need to get up, I need to do that. So where's Eddie going to be today? I need to make sure that he's looked after. I need to get all the bags ready. I need to sort that out. Okay, then Scott, so what we're doing at the weekend, it's that pressure on your mind, isn't it? That organisation. It's not just the physical, I've got the children. It's the, right, Georgia's got a doctor's appointment. I've got to take Eddie for a vaccination. And I think that kind of gets a little bit lost. You know,
I totally agree, Natalie. Totally, it's the mental load.
They try, but they're not quite there, are they?
It's the mental load that's the worst thing. Like, my husband's amazing. You know, he's looking after my son who's ill off school today at home and trying to work at the same time so I can do this. But, you know, he'll be amazing. He'll do, and he is getting better at the mental side of things. But, you know, we're 7-8 years in now, and he's still kind of, oh, have you had any thoughts what they're going to eat tonight?
Yeah,
I'm at work.
I've just had it to list.
Yeah, it's like, you know, it's all of that.
There's a lot going on. There needs to be like a separate bit of your brain to handle all the logistics.
My nan
but that's
the worst thing that God did was give women one pair of hands. That's always what she says.
Okay, so now let's bring this up to date. So over the past 2 years, we've all radically changed the way that we work due to the pandemic. I think most of us seem to actually be dialing in from home. So that's an obvious change. But as we apply that to your working lives and sectors, do you think this has been a positive? Can this change the landscape for women in your industry? Lots of nodding. Let me start with Nalormi. How has it changed things for you, Nalormi? And what opportunities does it present for women to advance in their sectors?
So I will start with a bit of a caveat, because the industry or sector I am in I know a lot of industry has struggled to cope. We didn't as such. There are a few things we did because we just went to remote overnight. So there was a challenge in that. But having said that, our industry was much more adaptable to it because we are already doing it with international clients and like clients all over the world. So we are already had the infrastructure in place. We already knew how to do team calls. So it was not a shock to us. We were doing it. It's just that the volume increased for us. That was it. So I will say probably I come from a place where I was not in that much of shock as a lot of other industries were in because of the kind of environment I work in, computers and clouds and data and etc. On the second part of it, it's like the way the networking opportunities or like when you work from home. I have never worked from home, even though I had the opportunity. I was someone who would like to go to the office because for as a consulting, I was moving from client to client. So it used to take me a little more time to know them, their problem in a war room or a meeting room. It would had a kind of helped. So for me, it was a shock. Oh my God, I'm working at home. I'd never have done it before. So that was a very personal story for me, like the shock of it. Like I love to go to office and work with the people I work with. But the part of it is the network element of it just glows very, very wide. Also, especially I'm from tech sector. The tech sector, its remote working is going to change very, very fast. And in terms of like, it kind of gives a different conversation of upskilling and various economics or scale of economics will come into play. So in next 10 years, this industry, for my industry, is going to change. So it's like in terms of how do you adapt is a very, very important because a person who is sitting in India or Philippines or UK kind of giving the same playing field now because it can be done. The world had now seen it done. So for it's much more important whether you're male or female, you upskill because now it's a common playing field, which is great because I come from a developing country. So that makes me very, very happy. So it's a different kind of diversity which is happening. Which and also in terms of work-life balance, I don't have a family, but when I'm listening to this amazing woman talking about it, this is going to be a challenge. And in my sector, I feel probably it will be better to handle it when you can stay at home. For example, during the pandemic, I have few male colleagues almost having a breakdown because they are because one of their wife was a nurse in NHS. She has to go to office and he was handling 3 kids. I could see them crying and he is apologizing. And I was like, don't apologize. So it also brings out the humanity in us. That's amazing to see it's happening. So the balance is like, flipped and you are seeing them handling the entire scenario, which is great. I was like, don't apologize for your kids crying. It's fine.
Yeah, we're not robots.
Yeah, they're like, and he was almost in the verge of breakdown. I was like, it's fine. I will call you later. It's fine. But it was like, I think it's kind of makes it easier. It would be easier to handle because at the end of the day, your time and energy is limited. And remote working gives you more flexibility in terms of also choosing an options. For example, I am switching to a new company and I could do all the interviews via Zoom and Team, which was so easy. Otherwise, I would have to travel to London.
Easier to look for new work. Yeah. Sorry, I am just aware we're running out of time. So just quickly, other thoughts on how COVID has changed things. Has it presented opportunities or more challenges?
Yeah, massive.
More opportunities, Natalie?
Yeah, I've noticed, obviously, nobody's blind to the fact that throughout COVID, a massive focus has been on HGV driver shortage. Everybody knows about this. It's been in the news. It's meant that HGV drivers have got the recognition that they've needed for a long time because the industry has gone downhill. Camaraderie, anything like that, wage hasn't been reflected. Now they're getting what they deserve, if not some companies paying a little bit too much, in all honesty. But there's that competition out there. I'm seeing a lot more women come through because it is a valid career. A lot of women have lost their jobs, been made redundant, and thinking, hold on, that's a pretty sweet deal there. So it's battered down a few doors on that front, as well as kind of giving a lot more opportunity for us as trainers. The only thing that's stopping us from buying another 3 vehicles, I've got enough people I've got enough ability to train more people. Unfortunately, it's the government booking system and lack of testing that's stopping us. But the amount of people doing HGV, and not only that, they also made CPC training online, which is something that we'd done since 2014, but it came online. Every HGV driver in the UK has to do 5 7-hour courses. And me and my husband sat there and went, oh, shall we do this? Shall we take it online? That's now an entire division of our company that we are growing and growing to the point where we do around about 80 people every week. So we train and we're expanding, and we have 2 new instructors joining us. So I'm trying to push through, get more women involved, but it's been a massive, as awful as it's obviously, but it has definitely changed my industry, definitely. And
addressing that gender balance, which is great. Kelly, Penny, what opportunities has the pandemic presented, do you think?
I would say from a print industry perspective, when I was doing roundtables with women pre-pandemic, one of the key things, because it's a manufacturing business, a lot of people were working in factories, and they might not necessarily be running the machines. They could be an account manager, so there's still it's still a desk job, but they weren't allowed to work from home. It was very everybody must be in the office, and I think what COVID has done has actually shown a lot of those businesses you don't have to have people sitting in the office. Yes, you need people there to run the machines, but other people can then take their work home and do it at home. And I think that's a massive advantage for women, because, you know, when we've got to get children to school or get them home or figure out how we're going to get shopping and things like that, if you haven't got to make that commute to work and back again, all of a sudden you've got so many more minutes or hours in the day, which just helps you to try and do some of the mountain that we all have going on in our heads.
I know I've just spoken, but can I just say, I think it's important to notice, and something that I got really stressed about is the fact that we almost feel a pressure to be perfect, and a pressure to prove to everybody that we can run a business and we can be mums and stuff. And I got quite almost built up a resentment towards my husband, going, why have women still got to do this, and why have I still got to do this? Why can't you think of that? I think if you let go of that, you can be a lot more successful, because you let go of the fact that it is what it is. They're blooming useless. They won't remember this. Yeah, you know, you're going to make mistakes. Yeah, you're gonna mess up. And I've just realised that my daughter needs picking up in 20 minutes. And you're going to do that. It's going to happen. But let go of that resentment of, we also have to do that as well as this. And just
a waste of energy.
It, really. And just, you know, we can do it both. Watch us.
Penny, you were going to say?
And my speaker's just turned off, so I won't be able to hear.
I was just saying to Natalie, it's a waste of energy if you get all het up about it and get resentful. I think just in terms of your question, in terms of the pandemic, I would just say that the working from home and homeschooling was traumatic, and I still think I'm suffering, and I think I'm not the only one. And I would say that it was absolutely horrendous. Your first lockdown, I had a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old. Try and homeschool them, absolute nightmare. And trying to juggle a very stressful job, you know, the uncertainties of a pandemic. And I do think there's a lot of women who left, well, the stats show that there's an awful lot of women who bore the brunt of that and had to leave the industries or the jobs that they were working in because of the pressures of trying to juggle homeschool, inflexible employers who wouldn't allow them to work strange hours or reduce their hours. You know, in the second lockdown, when Boris announced it, the second homeschooling lockdown, I literally, as soon as he'd done it, I emailed work and said, look, I'm going to have to part-time furlough myself, because I cannot continue to do what I did before. So I think just in that as a backdrop, I think for those women who've managed to hold on and get through that, or have managed to change roles or change careers as a result of that, I think the pandemic has opened things up and will make it easier going forward. You know, we're at Elliott Woods, we're now going on a 50-50 basis. So 50% of your time should be on office or on site or at meetings, and maximum 50% at home, unless you've got a particular flexible working agreement. So and I find that a good balance. I was starting to feel quite isolated working from home all the time. But equally, you know, I only commute into London 2 days a week, and the thought of having to do that 4 or 5 days a week, as it was old days, is just, I just don't know how people did it. And I think children in particular are kind of expecting you to be around more, because generally they have had parents around more if they've been able to work from home. So I think, yeah, there's a big difference, and I think it goes for everybody. It's put everyone in a similar position. So male and female are feeling similar things, and it's, you know, there's a lot more men at school doing pickups and drop-offs because they've got that flexibility. So I think it has helped to even things out a little bit.
Very good points. So we're in the final stretch now. So a few things I wanted to tackle. First of all, do you think that there are more things that senior male leaders can be doing to support women in your industries? And if so, what are they? Everyone's thinking. I get the impression from you guys, it's like we're doing it for ourselves. Like, you know, do we need the men to do more?
I think
Let's
it's
just
just
get on with it.
I think it's just been listening, really. I mean, your employees know what they need. So as long as they're open to listening, and my CEO is amazing, Gary Elliott, he'll listen to anybody. And whilst they can't accept every suggestion that comes their way, because it would just be chaos, they do have regular pulse surveys where they ask us to answer various questions across the whole business and get a general feeling of what the big issues are, and they do address them. You know, we have diversity discussion groups where we look at gender, we look at race, we look at carers. That was interesting. The caring one was really interesting. In the women's diversity, you know, gender diversity, it was a good mix of men and women. In the carers, it was all women, not one man turned up. Very interesting. So it's having those sessions and having the feedback and taking it to SMT. So I think that's really important. Listening and being open.
SMT meaning senior management.
Sorry, yeah.
We've got the acronyms going. Yeah. That's okay. Anyone else, or any ideas on, you know, things, you know, the progress you've made since the start of your career, the progress that your industries have made? What next do you think needs to happen? Any further changes you're looking for?
In mine, awareness, the fact that we are not driving massive tractors anymore. They're all automatic. You don't have to be strong in that sense. You know, you don't have to be, in a lot of companies you don't even load. So I think awareness in mine would be the big one.
It's almost like for haulage, it's like, you know, PR to attract more women into the industry, because it's a great industry.
And not only is it gender, unfortunately, it is an industry where if a female is involved, there's a certain stereotype that people think of a HGV driver as a woman. You straight away, probably everyone sat here today will straight away think of a certain stereotypical type of person, and that's just not true. That just really isn't true. So awareness.
Thank you, Natalie. Nalormi?
It would be same to what Penny just said in terms of like listening and what Natalie said, awareness. And also I personally feel a bit more conversation, rather a bit of debate, because sometimes we feel in our, like the society and the time and place we are living in, we sometimes just say yes because it's politically correct to say so or socially correct to say so, but sometimes we don't believe it. So have more debate or like conversation where you can challenge someone who doesn't believe in it. So then the actual conversion or change happens, rather than just making someone yes because that's the right thing to do. People are politically aware whether they believe it or not. So a bit more debate, a conscious debate on those topics.
Conscious debate, change happens. I like that. Okay, and Kelly?
So I would say mentoring. I think, you know, if senior management can do anything, it's encouraging people to get mentors, and for you know, perhaps some of the more senior leaders or role models within the industry to be able to mentor others, particularly younger people as they're coming in, you know, being able to support them, be that advocate in the room. I think it just really helps to encourage people then to be able to be the best they can be.
I think that's
lovely.
really
And
important,
are you going
Kelly.
to?
I think
Yeah,
to like standing
important.
up for the younger engineers and giving them a voice, regardless of gender, to be honest.
Yeah.
And standing up for those situations where it goes to the youngest female in the room to be note taker. Like I've called that out many times.
Yeah, I think that that's a good point actually as well, Penny. Younger people in general, to Nalormi's point, I do feel sorry. Like when you get to a point in your career, COVID, working from home, it's great. But when you're younger, it is so important to be able to mix and to make those contacts. And I think that they have more challenges doing that now. Okay, and I was going to say, Kelly, are you going to resume the Victoria Print Network roundtables now that we're all maskless?
Yes, now that we're allowed to all get back together again, we definitely want to kick it off again this year with some more roundtables, and we'll probably do a few more podcasts as well, which is something we did pre-pandemic.
Okay. So final question for each of you, and I'm sorry, you're gonna have to make it short. So you can answer it in one of two ways. One, what would you tell your younger self starting out in your industry, or what would you tell a young woman starting out in your industry today? Whichever way round you want to tackle that. Who wants to go first? Natalie, I'm going to start with you.
I'd probably tell a younger woman, because obviously I've just always been in it. I'd probably say, don't take any shit from anyone. Don't do it. Have fun and enjoy being a strong woman around a load of blokes. Because trust me, we can do a damn fine job. So no doubting. Don't doubt yourself.
Don't doubt yourself. That's really good advice. Nalormi, what's your advice?
Be bold and read and learn. Never stop doing it and understand. And just surround yourself with people who you aspire to be, whether it's a man or a woman, doesn't matter. You will progress. There is no other way if you surround your society, your environment with things which you want to be.
Great advice. Kelly?
Yeah, I would say be brave and believe in yourself, believe in your own abilities, and a bit like Natalie, just don't listen to the odd person that might try and suggest that just because you're female you can't do it.
Nice. Okay. And Penny?
I think similar, really. Believe in yourself and stand up for what you think is right. And I don't think you can go too far wrong, because then you build a career that's aligned with what you think is right and what your kind of personal purpose is.
Yeah. And generally, ladies, are you feeling optimistic, positive about where, our workforce generally is going today and your individual industries are going?
Yeah.
So we're getting back to normalcy, right? But with some changes, with some key changes. Very good. Well, I'm looking for Jay. Tell me if there's anything I'm missing, but I will say we're just about out of time. I want to thank Webmart very much for organizing this. This is the first of a series of new webinars they're going to be running. So coming up in April, they've got a webinar on sustainability. And then in May, there will be a webinar on how to become a B Corp, which she did explain to me what that meant, but I'm told that people like you will know what that is. B Corp, sounds good. And please do follow Webmart. You can follow them, obviously check out their website, but also follow them on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We'll be posting, they'll be posting more from today as well. And Jade, shall I hand back to you now?
Yeah, we'll be putting the video online so everybody can have access to it. But also, I know we're running over, so just a quick one. But if anyone has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat in the next.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking for questions in the chat. I didn't know.
Well,
I didn't open it up. I just kept asking. So
if anyone has one, but if anyone has a question while we're here, then feel free to type it up and just while we give that a minute. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I think that was a really interesting discussion.
Oh, wait, a new message. Oh, right. Okay. We've already answered one of the questions. Thank you. Good.
Happy International Women's Day to you too.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you. And yes, looking forward to the return of the Victoria Print Network. Kelly, you're onto a winner there. Very good. Sorry, attendees, that I didn't draw you into this sooner, but I'm glad that I answered the question or asked the questions you wanted answering. Any other questions? Okay.
Okay, I think they're probably
So
round.
can I just thank again Webmart for organizing this, and Jade, and thank you to Kelly, Natalie, Nalormi, and Penny. It's been a real pleasure talking to you today.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you very
guys.
much. Good to meet you all.
Take care,
See you
everyone.
later. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.